On this episode of the Neutral Wisdom Podcast, Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley is joined by Church of Satan Reverend Adam Cardone to discuss ritual and greater magic. You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to passing on knowledge and experience from a satanic perspective, hosted by Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley.
Greetings and welcome to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Satanic Warlock Robert Shirley, and today we're going to be discussing greater magic and ritual with a very special guest. There's a huge misconception and misunderstanding of ritual magic, especially as used in Satanism, and I'm so excited to welcome my special guest, most definitely a recognized expert on this topic, Church of Satan Reverend Adam Cardone. I'm not going to open this episode up with a huge preamble. Reverend Cardone and I have a lot to cover. I do have an unpublished essay from my forthcoming book, Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock, that I would like to share with you now, called What's the Worst Thing That Can Happen? Greater Magic and the Warlock. As Satanists and Warlocks, we employ both lesser and greater magic to influence the people and environment around us to achieve our desired outcomes. While the Warlock heavily relies on lesser magic in his day-to-day life, the power of greater magic cannot and should not be ignored. Greater magic, also known to Satanists as ritual magic, is the specific channeling of your intent out into the universe to manifest your desires. Within one's own ritual chamber, it is the performance of psychodrama and the suspension of disbelief. The ritual chamber is a place you can truly make your own. You can do, be, or say whatever you want. There's no right or wrong in the ritual chamber. It is a place where social mores and the norms of regular society do not apply. Plenty of information has been written about greater magic and ritual in Church of Satan Canon. There's no need for me to reiterate it here. After all, Satanism demands study, not worship, so I hardly recommend you read up on it. However, there's one thing I can personally relate that Canon doesn't. This stuff works. In my development as a Satanist, greater magic was always a step I had been ambivalent about taking. It seemed quite silly to me, to be honest. All of my friends in the Church of Satan and Warlock Academy employed greater magic ritual and had great things to say about it. And I always figured I'd try it out if it was something I really wanted to do. The CoS says that ritual is optional for Satanists, and I didn't really feel I needed it. This isn't to say I wasn't prepared for ritual. I love my stuff and the aesthetics of an altar. I have an altar in my home, but up to a point it was only there to look at. I have it all. The altar, the Baphomet statue, the ritual sword, the candles, the gong. I do draw the line at the dildo, but I convince myself it's because I don't do group rituals which require a benediction. People in my family are great believers in ritual, using crystals, tarot cards, tea leaves, and the like. Although I affectionately label my loved ones as kooks, I can appreciate their need for and use of ritual. Recently, I wanted to pay down some debt. There was a period where I had the house to myself, so I figured, why not? If anything, I'll be able to relate to my brothers and other CoS members better. What's the worst thing that can happen if I give this a try? That it might work? So, I set up my ritual chamber and performed the 13 steps for ritual as outlined in the Satanic Bible. I performed a compassion ritual for myself, writing down my desires to pay off this debt I had incurred. I burned the requests in the candle flames and declared, "It is done." I did feel complete as a Satanist after the ritual. I will do this again, if only for the great feeling of release that comes with getting it all out. Is it by mere coincidence that days later I discovered that my bank had been overdrawing my deposits for my automatic bill payments and that I was owed an overage of approximately the amount I needed to pay down that debt? Some would say that's a coincidence, that I really had that money all along. But I see it for what it really is, magic. If I had not put my intent out there to get what I desired, would I have ever known about the overage? Would the bank have ever called me to let me know about it? I attribute no other explanation to this other than the fact that I did it myself. I made it happen with the power of my will alone. I put it out there, and things happened. Does this mean that I have magic powers? Well, not in the supernatural, kooky-ooky occult sense, no. But do I believe that my will is strong enough to influence outcomes? My regular application of lesser magic as a warlock, and now this reinforcement of the validity of greater magic tells me that yes, I do have magic. And so do you. You have just as much ability to perform magic as I do. If you're a Satanist and have not yet performed a greater magic ritual, it is my recommendation that you do so as soon as possible. After all, what's the worst thing that can happen? That it might work? Let's pause for a break here. When we come back, we will welcome Church of Satan Reverend Adam Cardone to further elaborate on greater magic and ritual.
You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For comments, questions, or suggestions, email information@neutralwisdom.ca.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Jack Hades here. Are you ready for the most exciting shopping experience this side of the mortal realm? Well, buckle up, because the Neutral Wisdom Shop is here to make all your buying dreams come true. Step right up and feast your eyes on the finest selection of goods you can find anywhere. From the latest in style and accessories to the chicest fashions of the season, featuring me, good old Jack Hades himself. The Neutral Wisdom Shop has it all. So, come on down to the Neutral Wisdom Shop, where every day is a happy day. Located at neutralwisdom.ca, right in the heart of darkness. We're always open for your business.
When you find yourself on the wrong side of the dirt, head to Neutral Wisdom Shop and buy a shirt.
Check us out at neutralwisdom.ca. We'll be waiting for you.
And we are back with the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. And today I am so excited to have as a very special guest, magician, musician for acts such as the Toilet Boys and the Rambones, YouTube entertainer, the list goes on, Church of Satan Reverend Adam Cardone. Adam, what can I say? It's a real privilege to have you here on the show.
Wow, thank you very much. That was a cool intro, and I am very excited. We were chatting earlier about how we both like going down philosophy holes and talking, so here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, this is your platform and you can say basically whatever you want.
Cool.
Here today, we want to talk about greater magic and some ritual. But before we get started, anyone affiliated with the COS is obviously familiar with you and your work and what you do. But believe it or not, some of our listeners might not be overly familiar with you. So this is your chance to introduce yourself. So I would love it if you would tell us a little bit about yourself. No need to go back to the womb or anything, since we can all dig into your background. But the basics would be great. The here's Adam would be fantastic. And, a little bit about you and what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I mean, in a nutshell, because I have lots of angles to my ways these days, but I live and work in New York City as a full-time magician variety entertainer, and I do corporate functions, I do private parties, I do nightclub work, and I have a really crazy wide range of clients. And I also play bass in rock and roll bands and have for 30 years now.
You're aging yourself, buddy.
Yeah, I know I am. And one of those bands took me around planet Earth, and I've been writing a lot about some of the times of that era, and like I got to meet and play with my childhood heroes. I mean, I really got to share the stage with them, and it was shocking of how it manifested itself. And so then, I had that rolling, and I've been involved in the music scene for my whole time in New York City. And for fun, I play board games, I paint miniatures, and I surf. And I dungeon master.
Nice. Okay.
What else? I like analog things. I try to avoid screens as much as possible. I do watch movies here and there. I'm right now working on 2 different books. I never really thought of myself as a writer my whole life. And if you told me when I was a little kid that I was going to be obsessed with writing, and I would never have believed you. But in the last 5 years, I started going down some serious writing holes, and I started writing a book. One of them's basically finished. I'm editing, and the other one is not. So it's a lot of work.
It is, but you're right. It is a rabbit hole that you can go down, and I actually find it quite cathartic to put what's in your head down on the page, right?
Oh my God, it's beyond cathartic. It's like it forces you to sit and really think about your values and who you are and why you would use certain words and what the word actually means. And you're like, if I write it down, well, then that's permanent.
Exactly.
This is why
yes.
I always tell people the difference between fact and truth. If you write something down and it gets published, it's a fact. It doesn't have to be true, but it becomes a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Houdini died on stage. How do you know? Well, it's in a movie. He died on stage. It shows it in the movie. It's a fact. well, it's not the truth. He didn't. That's not how he died. So that's why when I'm writing, I'm like, wow, when I write it down, it doesn't matter what it is. It becomes a fact. Think about it. It made me like, I read this thing Schopenhauer said where it's easier to get a thought and get it on a piece of paper than it is for it to leave the paper and go into the person's mind to understand it. Yeah. When I read that, I was like, oh my God, it means like you can't be lazy. Can't be lazy when you're writing.
No, your message is your message. You're putting it down there, and then responsibility of the responsible, right?
Bam.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you do your best to communicate it, and then that's it.
And we were also talking off the air about Satanism. Now, of course, you're a Reverend in the Church of Satan. You know, one of the whole reasons that I started this show was, as I explained to you, I'm really tired of telling people what Satanists aren't. So as I say, every time I divulge to somebody that I'm a Satanist, I have to go into a diatribe about how I don't kick puppies and I don't eat babies and I don't. And I think it's time for us to stop telling people what we're not and time for us to start telling people what Satanists are.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, okay. So here's my take on my public relations with Satanism, because it's a really, for me, a very, very, very complex subject. For years, it's explaining to people what we're not, right? It's like, we don't eat babies, we don't do this, we don't do that, stop, please, go away. And yes, now is the time for us to be like, no, we have our own ways of doing things, and we've been doing them like this for millennia. So all the de facto Satanists and whatnots, this is how things run. But I have a very different take on it. And this is where my lesser magic coincides with my public persona. If there's Satanists listening, this is going to get very deep on a psychological level. And please feel free to pause me and question, stop and nuance this, because there's a lot here. So basically, I ride my affiliations with Church of Satan publicly. Obviously, it's all over the place. It's online. It's in movies now. I've been done interviews out the wazoo. If you look me up as just a magician, eventually it pops up. It's there. It's there to see. It's not hidden. It's not like I'm hiding it. But I don't wear it on my sleeve. If you watch my YouTube shows or follow me on Instagram or Facebook or any public platform, you'll never, ever hear me say it openly. And if I do, I keep it ambiguous and gray. And it's almost from just me paying attention, I've noticed the power that generates is hundredfold. Power meaning I have a public persona as this entertainer Satanist guy, and it holds a weird sub-power, occult, meaning hidden, that I don't have to explain what it is. It's just in my work. It's there, and I don't have to say what it is. And if somebody asks me about it directly, I will sometimes still give ambiguous answers. Sometimes I'll speak so on the money that it seems like I'm being not honest, and sometimes I won't. And sometimes I'll even play the angle that I don't actually hear a lot of Satanists play these days, where I'll lean into things. For instance, if somebody accuses something like, so I've tried to throw satanic events at certain nightclubs that denied me because they said Church of Satan was a hate group. And my response was, yeah, okay, we are. Great. We hate people. We're allowed to. And, sometimes I lean into these things, but in a manner and with a nuance to it that makes people realize that I'm just being honest, and I'm actually not bigoted in the way they thought. I'm bigoted in another way. It's on such a larger scale. They're just like, wow, he really is evil. His values are so different than mine that I get it. He's like on another trip. And they don't judge me anymore. They don't judge me. It's part of the
mystique. It's part of your mystique. And you're not out to change it. You're not out to change anybody's mind.
Exactly.
I am what I am.
If there's a problem and it's dangerous, so be it. I don't even need to explain it anymore. Exactly, I've stopped. Yep. I'll lean into it more. Great. I'm terrible. Please. I am.
If you think I'm a boor, I'm about to prove you right, sir.
Exactly. Yep. And so my lesser magic version of, I have a word I have a code word for Satanism that I use, and you may have heard me say it online. I don't know if you've heard it floating. I say grapes.
Yes.
It's a long story why. I call it grapes. It's my code word. I think I might have mentioned it on my internet show. I don't know. I don't know if I ever mentioned this publicly. I guess I have. I use the word. But for me, grapes is the word for Satanism that I used when my kids were little, so that when people hear the word Satanism, you have to go into a Q&A session. And so I don't really have time to be a Q&A guy on Satanism 24 hours a day. So I use the word grapes. So how it's used is my kids would be like, is that guy grapes? And I'd be like, yeah, he's grapes. Or is that grapey? Yeah, that's a little grapey. And it just means satanic or Satanism or Satanist. It's just easier and it's lighthearted and no one even noticed. I remember somebody wrote an essay on when to tuck in your Baphomet and when to wear it out proudly. To me, that is something that we should be talking about constantly. There's different ways to ride these things. And to me, this is the occult part and the magic part and the psychological part that I identified with when I was a little kid with grapes or Satan. See, I'm using grapes. It's just natural.
Old habits.
So that, like, the lesser magic version of the psychology of what Dr. LaVey came up with and his organization of it, that's why, like, most of us, when we discovered it, we're like, oh my God, this is exactly how it should be. Like, I would have done the same. Like, this is it. He threw together a few things that naturally we like to put together, which is rituals mixed with our own personal flair, you know? So did that make sense?
Perfect sense. It's funny that you say, I would have done this myself because Reverend Jeff Bowling and I had the same discussion. I think he was a little more bitter about it than you when he realized that Anton LaVey had created a religion that he was busy making up in his own 12-year-old head. Shout out to Jeff.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, really, it was like it had all the elements coming together. And for me, on the really profound level, is I was already heavily into magic trick stuff, like very much so. Like I had already read hundreds of books. And I had already read 100 books on the occult, too. I was a very ready kid. And so when I finally hit the LaVey stuff, it was just like the marriage of many elements. And he had the same journey. You know, his journey was the same thing. His was a marriage of many elements coming together of his life. And I look at his life and my life, and he was making money producing burlesque shows for a while. And that's exactly what I do. No difference. I make a living producing shows, and a lot of them are burlesque shows. Some of them are private. Some of them are for like bars and restaurants and nightclubs. And he was playing the organ for them. And for me, I'm the MC and I do magic in them all. So it's just so like mirroring. And I see his experience of being in that scene. I've been in it for 30 years now. And I can smell and feel and hear all the influences that he had and where it was coming from. Honestly, it's just good improv. What happens is when you're in an element for that long, you start to be able to see into the future, literally see into the future, because you're able to put puzzle pieces together really quick. This is like, we've all seen improv comedians that are really good. They're able to quickly do an assessment of where things are leading and make people laugh because of it. They're able to second guess. And so the whole concept of me not wearing Satanism so loudly, and again, if it comes out loudly, that's fine too. That doesn't bother me. It's not like I'm hiding that. It's just I feel almost like the more I don't need to show people what it is or mention it or even just downplay it, it almost reminds them that it's actually way bigger than they can imagine.
Well, you know what? A lot for myself, me and a lot of other people were actually first introduced to you, I think, in An American Satan, as the host of the Nude Witch Review, because of course, when we're first getting into that, we're looking for free shit, and that's free shit. That's available, right? So we go on, we watch that, and you come on the screen, and it's like, wow, okay, let's see what this guy's got. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm curious of what my first impression was. I mean, it's so weird just for me to see that movie because I know most of the people in it pretty. Like, I know everybody in that movie except for, like, Diabolus guy. But everybody else I know pretty well. So I'm just curious from another Satanist, like, what was the vibe? Because, I mean, yeah. It was coming from a Spaniard's point of view.
Okay.
Remind me. I'll tell you about that because these guys that made it were from Spain, and they definitely have some different values that came up in the filming. But yeah, I'm curious to what your vibe was.
Well, I like the film, and like I say, because it's the first time that most of us are going to be exposed to a lot of the membership.
Yes.
These are the Satanists. The Slipper Room had the top of the top, right? The cream of the crop was in that
Yeah.
room that night.
Debbie Harry's in there. Debbie Harry was there,
Yeah.
and you can see her in the movie for a second.
To go back and watch for it now.
Yeah, it's like pitch dark, and they show the audience, and she's on the left, right below the DJ booth.
I'll be looking for it. So yeah, we had that kind of beginning, and then they kind of flipped over to you at Coney, and the first impression was, wow, this is something, because you have the command to look, right? Like you're very,
Oh yeah.
you look at this guy, right? And we all as Satanists understand what the command to look is, but Adam Cardone has it in spades. And then you start talking, and then that's it. And going from your explanation of your background to the Slipper Room and the Nude Witch Review to you
Yep.
cleaning and polishing your rifles.
Oh
is
yeah.
just this big wide range, right? And it generates a lot of interest. It's like, wow, you know what? These people are actually very eclectic and very interesting, and they don't give a shit what anybody thinks.
Well, there you go. That's the big one. The don't give a shit is, I mean, it's funny. It's the stoicism part of Satanism where it's just like, look, a lot of people that were attracted to Satanism were on a spectrum or were lonely or grew up with just not a lot of people around. And they were the type that were good at making friends with themselves and not really caring what other people, their own opinion meant the most. And here's a big one, and this is important. Ever since I was little, I really, the word fun, F-U-N, straight up meant so much to me, where it was like, I'm trying to come up with a better way of describing this. This is something I'm working on in my second book. Making activities pleasurable, no matter what it is, whether it's hard work, whether it's exercise, schoolwork, whatever it was, taking a situation and making it interesting, going to the grocery store, making it an adventure, right?
It has to be. We have to wring every drop we can out of life because we're not going to the grocery store when we're dead, man.
Exactly. Like really riding everything. And I mean really riding it. Like, like Sunday ice cream with your family in a car. Like ride it. Like every little moment. And this is why Satanists are known for being passionate about whatever weird shit they're into, because they're riding it. And the one that's hard to do is when shit hits the fan and is bad. And that also has to be ridden, because there's the wisdom. There's the part where you get to learn stuff. But the shit hitting the fan, the suffering, which we're all getting, that's the learning part. And to me, this is the part we have to ride. We also have to ride it. And this is where, to me, the thing about Satanism that sticks out in the realm of philosophy is we like the ritual stuff. And we can rope this into greater magic and lesser magic. We figured out that we can put on shows for ourselves.
That's what you said in An American Satan. You
brought us. See, I don't remember this. Tell me what I said.
You brought us to your house, and you said, "This is the room where the magic happens."
I'm sitting there now.
You showed your ritual chamber, and what I found was you had a really interesting approach to your greater magic rituals.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to kind of share some of what it is that you do when you practice your ritual.
So great. It's so funny how greater magic. It was the thing, like when I was young, like really young, like 13 and 14, and even before I discovered grapes, I was doing that. I was making weird rituals. I was just doing it. It was like natural. I didn't have to be taught. I would scribble things on paper and stick them on the wall and light candles, and I just kind of knew how to do it. This is the young shit, I think, creeping out. Like, we have some hard wiring for things like that. Did you ever hear of the book, The Golden Bow?
I have not, but I will definitely be looking for it.
Yes, this is probably the most famous book ever written that is thousands of pages long. So when you get the book, you're getting an abridged version. It's a sociological look at the world's history of magic, and it's really scholarly, and it's old. It's from like the late 1800s. I'm actually looking at it right now. There. And so it explains like the first magic was sympathetic magic. The very first magic that early humans did was they would try to make something affected by doing something over here. I'm going to make a mud doll and nurse it with water so that grandma feels better. I'm going to make a mud doll of grandma. I'm going to make a mud doll of Uncle Tony and stick needles in his eyes.
So manifesting our intent from way back even then.
Yes, and they call it sympathetic magic. That's what it's called. That's what these sociological science guys call that type of a thing. And that's the beginning right there of ritualizing for results of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of a hardwiring that we do. And it doesn't have anything to do with the belief system yet. This has nothing to do with believing in anything. This is just a human need to get some sort of comfort out of doing something repetitive, or it's just there. I see it. It's a hardwiring. That's why prayer and God are popular. There's a certain evolutionary thing that alleviates pain from believing in God and ritual.
Well,
But the thing about ritual is a more of a conscious thing. It's not a subconscious thing. It's more of it's like I'm going to put my hands on this to put my hands on it. I'm going to make something. God, the belief in God, I really do believe is a hardwiring. Most people are hardwired to believe in the metaphysical. And it's the problem solving part of our evolution. When we're in the jungle and we hear the bushes rustle, Caveman Tony goes, "Yo, dude, I heard the wind." And Caveman Bill goes, "No, dude, that could be a tiger." Well, guess who lives? The guy that thought it was a tiger.
Exactly.
So that imagination thing that he did to imagine a tiger maybe was the noise actually is the same kind of little function of a God thing. Of like, there's a thunderclap. What is it? I don't know. It's a guy throwing shit in outer space. Cool. That makes sense. Let's move on.
Well, it's hardwired, and it's rhythmic, and it's comforting, right?
Yes, it works. It does do a thing.
And that's why we as Satanists are not part of that herd, because we throw that part away and say we could do that ourselves.
Yeah, and I didn't have to throw it away. I think I'm deficient. I'm a reject. No, really, this is, and I'm also a reject for good and evil. This is why when I read Friedrich Nietzsche, I was like, oh, well, here we go. Here's something even crazier than no God. I don't even believe in good or evil, but the good is the crazy one. This is where I've actually gotten into debates with Satanists over good, Satanists that believe that good exists. Like when I mean good, I mean objective good. Because for me, that's God. It doesn't matter what it is. If there's a standard of good, that's God. That's immediately well, then there's some sort of God then.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be an opposite too, right?
There's got to be, yeah. So for me, there's no standard of anything. There's entropy. That's what I see is entropy. That's all I can see. I see that things rot. They don't go the other way. We get old. We don't do the Benjamin Button thing. Things move in a direction. That's all I'm definitely for sure of.
Well, and it's subjective too, right? Like as most Satanists will say,
yes,
good is what I like and bad is what I don't.
Bad is what
like.
I don't. That's it.
But but the universe or whatever is ambivalent. It doesn't give a shit what happens. Just shit happens, right?
I mean, really, the sun could fart tomorrow. Literally, just fart, and we're gone.
Exactly.
So, I mean, and that happens all the time in the universe.
And there's your stoicism.
And that's why, yeah, no, really, that's it. It happens all the time. It could happen tomorrow. That's fine.
Yeah, I got to bring you back to your ritual stuff.
Yes.
And sir, we went off on a little tangent there.
Oh, I went down the golden bow.
I love it. I love it.
It was
Please keep doing it.
Yes.
Keep things interesting.
So, yes.
But one of the things I do want to know is now, of course, you being a reverend and a magician, being very ritualistic, having a lot of ritual. Yes. As Satanists, we know that engaging in rituals is purely optional. We can do it. We don't have to do it. But Magister Bill M. has often mentioned that, he's mentioned this with the caveat that all Satanists need to do it at least once. So in the essay that I read at the top of the program, I mentioned like I avoided this for quite some time.
Yes.
I
Oh,
figured,
you
well,
did. You avoided a greater magic ritual.
I did. And so
Okay.
in your opinion, should
Yes.
Satanists or even people in general take part in or perform a ritual for themselves? It
So,
took me a long time, and now that I've done it, I love it. I mean, I don't know what I was waiting for.
so, okay. So to me, what happens when you're doing a ritual alone, and it has to be alone for it to mean something, is it's your subconscious and your conscious talking to each other. So
Okay.
this is why it's weird. This is why you probably felt strange. It's because you have two creatures inside of you, and they have different drives and different motives and different ways of working. And some of them, you've got your subconscious brain, you got your conscious thoughts. So when you're in that ritual, it's like, what you're saying, like we do things for ourselves so we like them. Well, here you are, you're performing for yourself. So it is kind of a weird idea. So how would you perform for yourself? How would you speak? How would you address yourself with respect? What kind of diction would you want to have? You're talking to yourself, bro. Like that's how I would do it. This is me talking to myself right now. Like,
But
hey,
it's a
what's up?
but it's a performance though, right?
It's a
So
performance for yourself to
you're going
yourself, signed by
you're
yourself.
going to affect the stage voice with authority. You're
Yeah,
how do you throw yourself into it? And that's what I found that I did, right? I
that's
threw
it.
myself into it because
Just throw in.
what is fascinating to me is one of the guys that I know in the Hellfire Brotherhood, one of my fellow warlocks, he did a ritual and he was telling us about it. And he went
Yeah.
into that room and he said, it was a destruction ritual. And I went in there and I said all of the nastiest, meanest shit I could think of.
There you go.
I hope you get fucking cancer. I hope you get hit by a truck. I hope. And I was gobsmacked. And it
Yeah.
was my light bulb moment where I went, we could do that? Holy shit.
Do
How
anything you
cathartic
want.
is that?
That's it. You can also cross the line and do taboo bad stuff. I always tell that to people. Go nuts. It's free. Do whatever you want. I don't care. It's up to you. There's nobody there. There's no God watching. There's only you. And that inner demon of you is watching clearly. And the main thing is this, and this is like for the people that are weary of it or haven't done it yet. Here, I'll give you something. Here's Reverend Cardone's do-it-yourself ritual you'll trip out on. But you got to really trip out. You got to commit to it. So you can make your ritual chamber look fucking awesome and make it dark. It needs to be candlelit, but it also has to be dark enough that you hallucinate a little bit. There's a really good balance of candlelight and dark, where in the shadows you'll trip out. You can hallucinate. Your sensory deprivation of candles and darkness and imagination, trip out. Allow yourself to hallucinate. So then I have a really big gong in my ritual chamber. The benefit of it is when you speak, it reverberates. You can hear it bounce off the gong.
Yeah.
It sounds awesome. I don't need any special effects. I have analog vibes. You can feel it. And so I will write a really short and sweet ritual. They don't have to be too long. Make it simple. But a good first one is imagine that you're really walking into the fucking gates of hell. Really imagine it. And imagine that you're going to see the most terrible things you've ever seen, and you're going to see the most beautiful things you've ever seen. And go in there, and when it's time for the actual part in the ritual where you get to kind of trip out, which is like, 2/3 in, you do some formal stuff to get it moving, which is in the standard Satanic Bible ritual.
The 13
which
steps.
I actually, yeah, I think that's great. I think that's perfect. Use that as the format. No problem. Perfect. There's a reason why that works. There's a tradition for that actually has a theatrical to it. And so when it's like 2/3 in and you get to do the art part, I call it, it's like the part where you get to really read poem, do whatever you're going to do. Really pretend like trip yourself out, take yourself on a mental journey, and as if you're walking into the gates of hell. And allow yourself to free think and commune with your subconscious and hallucinate. Really trip out. And then come back. And use this space and this is to me what Jung was doing. He was communicating with his subconscious. He figured out a way to chill out and relax and let his subconscious and conscious mind talk. To me, that's what rituals can be. That's what I use them for.
I love that you said that write your own. So, you kind of addressed another one of my questions for you is saying is there a right way or a wrong way to do a ritual? Because the Satanic Bible has the 13 steps and the prescribed rituals, and then there's the satanic rituals. So, what I was going to ask you was, is there a right way or a wrong way? Do we actually need all of the stuff that we're told that we do? But it doesn't sound to me like you believe that we need to follow that prescribed method, or that we do need all that stuff.
I would say the wrong way is the wimpy way, the uncommittal way, and the way that doesn't work. So that's the wrong way. The right way is take it so seriously that you pay attention to detail. That's it. And that detail is up to you. You're not following any code. I only follow things in it that LaVey laid out, or Magus Gilmore. His book has great stuff. His rituals, or his new rituals that he wrote, are really good. His edition is gold, and LaVey's is really, really good stuff. So I use a lot of their stuff the way they format things, but you don't have to. I just use it because actually a lot of his stuff worked. Like LaVey's destruction ritual that he wrote, that's one of the best ones ever. I mean, really, it's just so good. It's so juicy. But, you can take that and write your own. I'm writing a whole book on just that. That's one of my books coming out.
I was going to ask you, when's the Cardone ritual book coming out? I think after this, a lot of people would be interested in reading it.
Well, okay, so here's the spiel on the first book, because it's done. I have to edit it and figure out which version of publishing I'm going to do, and then see what the next step is. But it's a book on curses. It's my manual on psychological warfare and the art of cursing. It's got greater magic and lesser magic, and it's got a lot. It also has my written curses, and I wrote a lot of them. That are like, people can use them, but I want them to be inspirational for people to write their own. Some of them are in meter, like iambic pentameter. Some of them rhyme. Some of them are like limerick style. Some of them are really nasty. And I also have in there my Shemham Forash ritual and my Four Crown Princes of Hell ritual that I used in the rituals that I've done publicly. So those are going to be in there. But the book is about cursing and what it means and what types of people shouldn't read the book. It's not going to be pretty. I had to really think about the ramifications of it, because did you ever see the documentary on the guy that wrote the Anarchist Cookbook?
Yes.
Okay, well, that was kind of an amazing story that, you regretted writing it. And I'm looking at my copy right now, the Anarchist Cookbook. I love my copy. That book meant a lot to me when I was a kid. Just finding it meant a lot to me. And then I bought it. It was like, oh my God, I got a copy. Let's go smoke banana peels, which is not real. That's in the movie. So this book has got like some really nasty psychological warfare tricks that I know a lot about. And so I put it in book format. I put some like caveats in the front on like the applications of what I'm writing, but it's pretty fun. For me, it's got a bounce to it. It's got like a fun bounce to it. I don't know.
You put it out, and again, responsibility of the responsible, right? You're putting it out, and it's not up to you to tell me how I'm supposed to take it. I mean, I'm going to love it, of course, but
exactly.
Really,
and the other thing is, you can apply it all to whatever you want to apply it to. It doesn't have to be for cursing. It's just the cursing thing is a taboo subject that not a lot of people talk about. And I did a deep dive on other books on the subject. I couldn't find any. I have a book here right now called The Book of Curses. But it's not what I'm writing. It's about famous curses. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's not what I'm writing.
It's very personal for you, I guess.
Yeah, like this is not. I'm writing like like everybody. Have you ever had this happen? I have this happen to me all the time. People come to me and they go, "Dude, can you put a curse on somebody for me?" And I look at them and I go, "Huh?" And they go, "Yeah, blah 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 blah, just stole blah 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 blah." And I'll go, okay, what if I put a curse on them and their little kid gets its head cut off? And they'll go, oh, I don't know about that. And I go, well, then maybe I shouldn't. And they go, oh, okay, never mind.
You're not committed.
Well, see, there you go. So that's kind of like part of the premise of the book. I don't want to spoil any of the fun. But
No, that's
yeah.
okay. I'm
It's
hoping
a
that's
dark
coming
book.
out soon, let me tell you.
Yeah, no, I think it's fun, it's dark, it's a taboo subject. Is it mean? Yeah, it's mean, but it's okay.
I don't think
We
there's
need
enough mean books on the market today
but
anyway. It'll be a
that's what I'm
refreshing change of
saying.
pace.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's okay to be mean for fun sometimes.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we are animals. We got that in us. We get that. This is why, like, it's like a flux. It's like this thing that happens. It's just like every now and then you got to go, nah.
Yeah, let it all out. Absolutely, you do.
Yeah. And it's emoting it when you, like, at least for me, if I can emote some, like, bah, our emotions are a weird engine, you know? They have a weird engine to them. And gaming it all is tricky. Gaming our emotions is very tricky. And I think rituals is how we do it. This
Well,
is our chance to reprogram our subconscious. We're etching it.
and you've covered that brilliantly in solo rituals. Now, what about group rituals? There would
Ah,
be a lot of Satanists out there that, because we don't have to get together, there's probably not an opportunity for a lot of Satanists to participate in a group ritual. And if a bunch do manage to get together without somebody who really kind of knows what they're doing, it's probably not going to be everything that it could be. So, what about your input on the group ritual?
yes, so I've definitely have the opportunity to participate in some group rituals and quite a few actually. And a few really large ones now. And they are definitely quite memorable. I would say, and I think this is in my curse book. I talk about maybe and I think I've read this in other people's writings. You know, when you're doing really serious stuff, private stuff is always the best because, like I said, it's subconscious, right? It's you and your subconscious alone, and you're still doing this elaborate show. To me, that is actually extremely different than a group ritual. They're almost entirely different subjects. One of them is a internal journey and this dialogue with yourself. And the group ritual, there's this really interesting, we are herd animals. We really are. We evolved to survive better in small little groups. A lot of us are definitely the lone wolf types, but there's never not a feeling in a group of everybody in unison, singing, dancing, chanting, clapping, whatever it is. It really has power. There's just no way around it. I don't know if you've ever looked into this, but if your brain is used to operating on the higher scale of thought, like in your prefrontal cortex, when you get into a group of more than like 30 people, it actually drops to a different place. You go to a different group, you go to the sheep area. It's like it's a way of just adapting to more humans around. Group rituals are powerful. There is a power to them.
It's amazing that you said that thing about the prefrontal cortex. I worked in a place that was let's say I worked in the corporate office. It was corporate and a lot of above the neck shit, right? It was thinking all
Yes,
day and doing that. But
yes.
this particular department I was in also had a processing floor. I used to say that when I had to go to the processing floor, you could feel the IQ drop. Like you could literally, you'd walk in
Yeah,
and you go, yeah, I'm in a different place today. Holy smokes.
yes, yes.
So
Well,
it does make perfect sense that, as soon
yes,
as you get into a plenary group, that suddenly you're just going to go with the flow, unless you have a
yes.
lot of willpower, right?
Well, yes. The thing about a group ritual that is has to happen is there has to be the priest or the high priest or Peter Gilmore is really good. When he gets to lead a group, his fire is on fire. Yeah, when you have somebody good, like he's able to command a sense of power, and then you add a gong to it, and we're just like, we're home free. The gates of hell are open. Really, like wide open. But yeah, we've had some really good group rituals, and I know for a fact one of the things that I couldn't believe that really shocked me, not shocked me, but made me realize how important this was. When I did the Nude Witch review, people came from really far away. And that was a really stressful thing to produce because it was open to the public, which we don't do too many things like that. And also, people were traveling. So I was like, this has to be perfect. And we have to throw an after party. Like, if they're coming from far away, we have to make sure there's fun stuff to do all night now. And that was great. And so there's a lot of stress to make sure all the chips were in place. The ritual part ended up working out really good. And people, the thing that blew my mind are the people that came from far away and asked to put things on stage on the altar for other members and things that couldn't make it or had passed on. And it just was really neat that people took it seriously, which is what I wanted. See, this is the thing. Like, when you're an outsider and you watch any kind of occult ritual or any religious ritual for that matter, it's just never the same as being there as a part of it. And people will judge it accordingly. Not that we care, but if we're going to open something to the public, we might as well pay attention to the details and make it really slick. And show people that we do care about detail and we do care that we're sharp dressers and that we are polite, we are the most respectful. And I wanted it to be perfect. And you know what? It ended up being perfect.
It looked like a good party, man. Seriously.
Oh my God. It was really great. The hardest part was there was 2 sections and I had 2 different nude altars. Both of them are very close friends of mine. Both of them are professional dancers. One of them does circus a lot, and one of them is burlesque mostly. And so we all work at all these burlesque houses. And I said, hey, this is a challenge. I need you to do nude altar and then do some sort of an act, something simple. But you have no clothes on. You can be creative. Let me know what you want to do. Like, be creative. And the other girl, the second girl, I was like, same thing, nude altar, except as soon as it's getting to the climax, the aerial rig's going to lift you off the stage. So she went up and did a nude aerial, which I've never seen before. I've seen partial nudity, but not like full, just straight up walk out naked aerial. And so the first girl did a whole thing with rosary beads and where. And it was pretty amazing, to be honest. Yeah, that whole evening was really wild. And like Peter was on fire and it was just cool. And then the Spaniards were there. The an American Satan guys, they were there. I was going to say one of the things in that film that blew their minds when they came to meet me was the gun stuff, because they don't have any guns in Spain. And so they were like, do you have any, these guns? And I brought one of them out and they were just like, whoa, they freaked. Like, they just like, wow. Like, they've never seen one up close. I was like, here, hold it. Whoa. It's amazing. It's like, wow.
With regards to the nude witch review, I think
Yes.
On behalf of the listeners, but more on behalf of myself, when are you doing this again?
So I can't say anything, but I am working on something. It's probably at least a year from now. But I don't. There's another film out there, Church of Satan film. It's right now making the rounds at the film fests.
We do not have it where I'm from. I have not yet seen it.
Yes, but you know about it, right? It's called
absolutely.
Realm of Satan. Okay.
Yes.
I have seen it. I was not expecting to like it, and I liked it a lot.
Are you in it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a really neat little thing I get to do in it. It's funny, there's on YouTube, if you look up Realm of Satan trailer, you'll see one of my scenes. It's very simple. The film is almost meant to be a performance that it's like I wish everybody could get to see it in a theater where it gets pitch dark, because it's really neat the way it's made. It's more of an event, like a midnight movie, like a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of a thing. When it gets released by a distributor, because it's going to do all the film festivals now, there's going to be an event, and I think I'm working on something. We'll see.
We'll be staying tuned to your socials, and I'm going to pass it along on this network as well. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm trying to, because I get requested to do another new witch review, and I really want to do one. It's just I need about 6 months ahead to get ready, and I would like to do it again at Slipper Room, which we can do for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, that's like the most perfect venue for these things. The way it looks, and it's got a balcony. It's really nice. It's different too. It's got a different setup now. There's more room on the floor. But yeah, I'm it's so cool that you've seen the film and you have seen what it looks like.
So you have covered solar ritual. You've covered
Yes.
group ritual, and we're talking greater magic. So I'm just wondering, for you, what types of rituals do you use in your daily life? So do you, for example, have a ritual you perform before you go on stage? Musically, you performed in some pretty large venues. So do you have any rituals you use to beat down stage fright? Or as a magician, is there
Good
anything you do
question.
before a gig to ensure a successful performance?
You're asking some good ones.
Oh, I'm full of it, Adam. No, there's no
You got
doubt.
good ones.
Yep.
That, no, these are very good. It's fun. The music one's the one that first, like when you said it, I was like, wow. So I've been performing my whole life, and I don't usually get nervous for most things. I've fucked up live before. I've made mistakes on stage. I've fucked up magic tricks. I've done every mistake on stage, and I've realized it doesn't matter. You just keep moving, and or laugh at it. It's either that or keep moving. Once that I noticed that it didn't matter, I stopped getting nervous, and I was like that pretty young. I was like, look, if I go for it, all I got to do is get them to like me, and they won't even care if I make a mistake. It won't matter. The first time in my life that I was nervous, like where I was like, wow, this is wild, was when you brought up music. I had a few gigs early in my career that were like that, that I was like, now I wouldn't say I was nervous, like I was shaking and like that nervous, but I was like mentally. One of them was, I think it was my sixth. It was like I have to go do the math. My singer would know. It was like my sixth show with Toilet Boys, maybe seventh, was opening for. It was Toilet Boys, Wasp, Motorhead.
Great bill.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
No pressure.
So that one was definitely, and we were hanging out with Lemmy all night. Like he was down with us.
They were down with Ms. Guy. Come on.
He loved Miss Guy. And not only that, we were told not to play any Motorhead covers, and we had one. And he came over and said, "I heard you do one of our songs." We were like, "Yeah, we do Vibrator." And he was like, "I want to hear it tonight." We were like, "All right, bro, we'll play it." So we played it. But yeah, he was cool. But so that was one, and then we played the Garden with Blondie, and my mom was in the audience, and it was just like our singer on stage was like, it was my dream when I was a little kid to open for Blondie at the Garden. And here I am. And I actually got really choked up on stage. I was just like, whoa. It was like too much. But, after that band, I mean, we started really cranking shows, and then the nerves go away. There's no care. But my rituals for not like actual rituals, I have never had a superstition or a ritual that I kind of did with performance, other than telling myself everything's just, fine, go do it, because I didn't want it to become a thing.
Oh, you didn't want to rely on something.
Right. I wanted it to be just kind of like, I'm just kind of that guy. I'm ready to go.
Spontaneous. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's where I do use daily rituals. I tell people all the time, get a motherfucking gong, hang it up in a really good spot in your house, and you will use it. You will use it to accentuate parts of the day. You'll use it to wake up. I mean, I made a really sick ritual chamber in my home. I always tell people, if you make a good one, if you have to hide one, make one that's so well hidden that it's amazing.
Another world. Like you're going into another world. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can openly have a big fancy one, make it fucking look cool. And when you walk by it, you'll feel compelled to ritualize, and you'll start to use it. And I use mine for all sorts of shit all the time. I'll stop and have a talk, and you get a gong. You can get gongs online on sale, and get a bell, or get the accoutrements you want. Get the Buddhist gong, the bowl gong. They're cool, whatever, but get something. And, in my book, I talk about getting cheap dishes so you can smash them. But that's for the curse stuff. We'll get to that later. Really, like, if you can make your ritual chamber cool, you'll use it for rituals. You'll feel compelled to. It's kind of cool. It's like, again, it's your little subconscious talking to yourself. When I look at my Baphomet, I imagine I'm looking into my dark soul, like all the way. And I'll tell myself, bro, be honest. There's no one around. Just you and me, and me is you. So be honest and say it how it is. And that's, to me, what I use in ritual. And that's why make your shit cool. I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm totally gobsmacked right now, because this is the stuff that is not in the books. It's real advice from someone who's applied this philosophy, this religion, to the fullest
Yeah.
extent is living proof that it works. And I could not have asked for a better guest to come on the podcast and talk about it. I am so appreciative that you've been here. Before we go, I just want to know, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or have our listeners know about today's discussion, advice, tips, any other subject, whatever you like, and also any of your projects or websites? How can we hire you for a magic show? How can we see the Toilet Boys? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Feel it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, check me out on YouTube, Cardone Entertainment. My show, I have a lot of fun with that show. I mean, people ask me what it's about, and it's like, for me, it's basically a version of a philosophy podcast. So, but it's fun. It's a fun philosophy podcast. But basically, check me out on Instagram. I do shows elsewhere. I do travel. If you're in New York City, hit me up. And as for Satanists, you don't need to be a good guy ever. So be yourself, stop caring, and learn the power of subtle and the power of mystery. To me, those are the big core elements that I try to really think about constantly in Satanism. That's the part. What does it mean? What's the mystery that I'm selling? And how do I relate to it? And magic as an art form, my job is to create wonder. And I think we as Satanists enjoy wonder. It makes us feel good. Stepping into the void, into the ritual, the black hole of a ritual, and proclaiming your soul is in allegiance to the most terrible thing ever, the devil. Doing such taboo things, we find the thrill in that. And we're able to enjoy living our lives and not really caring about other people's opinions about our values. And we have a certain sort of freedom. Sometimes we have to be quiet about it. Some people live in communities where they have to be quiet, but hold it tight. The tighter you hold it, the tighter you keep it to yourself, that's fine. It doesn't matter. It just it'll make it burn brighter. And so to me, like, that part of Satanism, we got to think about. And it's funny that we started tonight on that one. That was interesting. So thank you for having me.
Looped back around to it. And I could talk about this all day. I could keep you here all day, but I guess there are limits to attention span. So I should probably wrap it up for this episode of my podcast.
Yeah, we can do another one another day.
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm holding you to that. But thanks to everybody for listening. And again, my eternal gratitude to Church of Satan Reverend Adam Cardone for your insight today. You've really gotten the greatest advice from one of the best in the game today, folks. So please go check out his websites and some of his projects. Please drop a like or comment down below. For questions or comments, you can email me directly at information@neutralwisdom.ca. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcast. Please check me out on Facebook under Robert Shirley and check out Instagram at @neutral_wisdom. Also, visit the website at neutralwisdom.ca. Until next time, ever forward.
You have been listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For more information, email us at information.neutralwisdom.ca, Facebook under Robert Shirley, or Instagram at @neutral_wisdom. Also, check out the website at neutralwisdom.ca. Program copyright 2024 Devilish Gentleman Enterprises.